Good afternoon and welcome to Inside Out LGBT Radio. I am your host, Dr. Nicole Cutts. I'm the resident success coach and psychologist, and I'm a part of a collective. I am joined on other Tuesdays by my esteemed colleagues, Angela Peebles, Lady Dane Figueroa Didi, and our interim co-host, Fernando Garcia. So on Inside Out, we come to you every Tuesday where we look at life through a diverse LGBT lens. We like to be inclusive in the guests and the material and the topics that we bring to you. And today is no exception. We're actually going to be talking about reflections of diversity in fiction, and I'm joined by a cadre of fabulous fiction authors who will be on the program, some in studio, some on air. And I'm also joined by a special guest co-host, Pam Brown Margolis, a.k.a. an Unconventional Librarian. And she, for obvious reasons, will be joining me, but I'm going to let her tell you more about herself. Now, I'm going to give you a little bio on her, and then we're going to bring her in. So Pam is a global vaccinations advocate with Shot at Life, which promotes vaccinations across the world. She also promotes diversity in literature as part of the We Need Diverse Books movement, and is an active public speaker, sharing her knowledge of children's literature and assisting independent authors and with book promotional tips. And I can tell you she's fabulous. Pam, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, Pam, our listeners don't know. I know that you're unconventional, but our listeners don't know why you have that moniker, an unconventional librarian. So can you tell us why is that your name? What does that mean? And a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, aside from the obvious that I'm a librarian, and we don't all wear our hair in buns and go, shh, because modern librarians are cool and we're fun. And so I'm always looking for the next fun book, the next fun game, anything that I can do to engage a child in a book. I'm not averse to wearing a tutu and a tiara with my chucks.
Yes.
So sometimes I've worn fairy wings. I just am not afraid to find the thing that interests a kid in a book.
Great. And I love to read, so that's exciting. And the other thing, you have a focus on diversity and multicultural literature. How do you mentioned the We Need Diverse Books. How do you promote that?
Well, I've learned from talking to others in this area that books can either be a mirror or a lens. And kids want to read books with characters that look like them. And so if you turn it around and turn a child that's in the minority onto a book about maybe a child from, the Deep South, they're going to look at that and go, you know what, there's something about that child that's familiar. I love my grandma, too. Or, hey, look at that. I didn't know that this is what life is about. So mirror and lens works on both sides of the spectrum, which I think is really helpful to people who don't understand why diversity is important.
Great. Well, I'm really glad that you're joining us today as my special guest co-host. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in our first author, who's actually no stranger to WPFW, Tony Regusters. He's here. He's actually a former advertising salesman at Essence Magazine, but that was back in the day. Tony's done a lot of things since then. He was a writer and a producer for CNN's Capitol Hill Bureau and a field producer for CNN International in Africa. Wow, he created the award-winning Teen Summit program for BET, which a lot of you all remember. I know, Pam, you and I talked, and you said, wow, I was a big fan of that show.
Yeah.
So that's great. Tony's also a producer and a director of a documentary entitled Obama in Ghana, The Untold Story, and it also won documentary awards. He is also a published author. That's why he's here today. Tony's a published sci-fi author, and his short story, The Emissary, appears in Genesis 2, the anthology of black science fiction. I didn't even know before this that, quote-unquote, black science fiction existed, so I'm already getting educated. He lives in Annapolis, Maryland, where he's completing Far Strider, an Afrofuturist science fiction novel. And the reason why I said he's no stranger to WPFW is because Mr. Regusters was an interim general manager for WPFW from 2001 to 2003. And he co-hosted Sounds of Brazil with Tony and Zeze.
Tony and Zeze
on WPFW here. So, Tony, welcome back
Thank you, Nicole. It's really a pleasure. This is so great for me. It's so very special, and I'm really appreciative. And I want to say hello to all the WPFW listeners. I love you guys. Thank you for supporting the station. And I want to congratulate you, Nicole, on the publication of your fantastic adventure fantasy novel, The Adventures of Princess Isabel, Book 1.
Thank you.
The Embryo Goddess and the Morpho. So we have another Afrofuturist over there sitting and being very humble about her wonderful creation, which is going to supplant Harry Potter. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm going to get ready for that. And I am ready for that. So thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about you today.
Yes.
So,
Good.
an Afrofuturist, I also didn't know what that was before I met you. And I'm imagining some of our listeners might not know either. So what is an Afrofuturist science fiction novel and novelist? What does that mean?
Well, let me first explain what Afrofuturism is.
Okay.
Afrofuturism is a literary device. It's a cultural aesthetic. It combines elements of science fiction, fantasy, magical realism, and non-Western cosmologies. It focuses on people of color and issues using historical events and technoculture to promote the concerns of the African diaspora. And proponents of Afrofuturism include the late great Octavia Butler, who we all know and love.
Yes.
Samuel R. Delany, a wonderful science fiction writer. The art of Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, we've anointed him as a futurist.
He might not have even known that he was channeling that. But
No,
yes.
but he was certainly channeling the future in his work. The photography of Renee Cox, the music of Sun Ra, Parliament Funkadelics. We all know about the mothership, right?
Yes.
And most recently, performing artist Janelle Monáe. Now, for me, I have reinvented myself as an Afrofuturist, so I'm adopting that term to identify the work that I want to do. What I think of it as is not only writing science fiction. I think of being an Afrofuturist as someone who is promoting ideas, concepts, ways of being, directions, and roadmaps that will assure that African American people are in the future.
Wow.
And I want to do that. I've chosen writing science fiction and writing essays and also speaking to help promote those concepts.
Right.
So as an Afrofuturist, my whole point is to assure that we're in the future. When I was growing up reading science fiction, so many of us loved to read when we were kids. Baby boomers especially were just really addicted to books. And all of the science fiction books that I read, there were no black people in the stories.
Right.
You know, so what happened to us? Where do we go? Oh, we just left y'all on Earth. You know,
Is their fantasy, perhaps?
Well, yeah. You know, we know what that looks like too.
Right.
So from a long time back, you know, that was a big concern for me. So after all of these years of my successful careers in media and communications, international relations, et cetera, retired guy now. I got plenty of time to let my creative energies flow. I got to make up for all the things that I did as a television news producer.
Right. Rebalancing that karma.
Rebalancing, yes, absolutely. And that's very important. And I feel the rewards because I'm being given recognition as a science fiction writer now. And it's so fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. So that's great. So it's more than a form of entertainment or a genre. It has a lot of fiction has a purpose, definitely, but it has a much deeper purpose. You know, it's almost, well, not almost, it is revolutionary, really.
Well, as we were talking with a wonderful installation artist, Lillian Thomas Burwell, over the weekend, just fabulous lady, and talking with her about my story, The Emissary, and the novel that I'm completing now called Far Strider, which is a story of time travel using DNA, where all of our ancestors come alive in us. The worlds that they live, they are still living in those worlds. And we don't know that because it's a deep subconscious existence that they have. What the story is all about is different times in historical movement, like tree rings, where certain people appear. And what these people do is set off triggers that create some effect that transports black people to another level of success and existence and meeting challenges. So hence Far Strider.
Yes.
And The Emissary is a kind of a takeoff on the Far Strider novel. It's a short story, but it's actually culled from the novel.
Right, right. So that's some deep stuff, Tony. As you know, I actually had a chance to read The Emissary, or in its current iteration, and really is revolutionary. I have another question for you around that idea of the knowledge of our ancestors living and traveling through our DNA. How does that compare or contrast to the idea of the collective unconscious, like Jung's collective unconscious, that we feel in us what happened to our ancestors? Is it similar to that?
It's very similar to that. As a matter of fact, I would say that Jung has been an influence on me. I started reading him actually in high school.
Oh, wow.
In 1964. Nothing better to do.
That's what everybody was doing in high school.
And I was so impressed with his work and the ideas that he had, especially regarding symbolism and dreams and different kinds of things, and it was very impressive for me. And it helped me to formulate my own ideas, which developed over a long, long period of time and have culminated and brought me to the point where I am now. Some of my greatest influences in sci-fi writing include, of course, Octavia Butler, but also Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov. But also Rod Serling was a tremendous influence. And I don't know how many people know that Rod Serling was a tremendous race man. He was a white man, but he was a race man because he introduced so many black characters on his program.
Yeah.
My production partner, Clayton LaBeouf, and I have really been focusing on the work of Rod Serling.
Yeah.
And he brought so many black characters onto the Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. So it was kind of like someone who was helping to promote the civil rights movement in a sci-fi, fantasy, horror story genre, and really kind of opened white Americans' minds to accept seeing black people on television.
Yeah, and more than that, it's not that the black folks just appeared on the shows, but he had a few whose theme was around race and racism. I don't remember the title of the one. I don't know if it's called The Stranger.
One of them called The Black Messiah with Yaphet Kotto.
Okay,
and
that might have been
Edward G.
on
Robinson.
Night Gallery.
Yeah, that was Night Gallery.
That was Night
That's
Gallery.
Correct.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But there was one during the Twilight Zone where it was akin to there was a black man in town, and it was akin to this alien. An alien that was in town, which was very popular with him. It's funny, I had not really thought through all of what you said about Rod Serling. I was on a Twilight Zone Jag the other day because they have all of them on Netflix, and so I just was binge watching every night.
Wow.
And which of course made me go and read more about him. So yeah, that's amazing. Well, can we call him an Afrofuturist also, or he had leanings maybe?
Yeah, we'll make him an honorary Afrofuturist.
Well, okay, thank you.
Give him a melanin badge.
Well, he was a Jewish man, so that helps definitely.
Yeah,
Right. So, Pam, I want you to know that if you have a burning question at any time, that you can jump in.
I do have a question.
Okay.
So you had me at magical realism.
I had you there.
That's my word, magical realism.
Okay. I'm glad I had you there.
So if you want to tell me a little bit about the magical realism of the book, that might be very nice.
Well, I think of the African spirit as one that has cosmic powers. I think of us as a people who are deeply, deeply spiritual. I think that we are actually the children of this earth. Mother Earth is our mother, for real. And as a spiritual people, we're also obligated to promote her magic. And her magic comes through us. We make that magic real. We've forgotten how to do it we've forgotten how to use those powers here in America because we're forced to forget those things. But we are recalling those things now. They are coming down on us and awakening in us. And, over time, white people especially have had this mythology about magical Negroes, able to float through the sky.
We are magical.
And all kinds of things like that, and outrun jet planes and whatever. And there's a survey out now, that says something like 80% of white people think that African Americans have magic powers. I want to promote that.
I was going to say, don't we? I know I do.
Well, that's what voodoo
and
worship of the Loas and the Orishas and all of those things which come from Africa, which were transported to Haiti and Cuba and Puerto Rico and throughout the Caribbean, the Arc of the Caribbean, and all down through South America to Brazil, where they practice candomblé and umbanda and worship the Orishas. And my story, Pam, brings all of these elements together, starting in ancient Kemet, and works through time, just like tree rings, where I explained where every little space, every year that passes, every several centuries that pass, some individual, a man or a woman, is born, and they're a trigger to promote something magical that transforms us and lifts us up to another level of consciousness.
Awesome. Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good.
So he's like, good, I'm glad. And I'm a little curious also as a writer about I guess it's a literary tool, if you will, magical realism. Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit more about it as a tool, or am I mistaken about it being a tool?
No, absolutely. You're not mistaken. Not at all. Many writers have focused on magical realism. You're doing it yourself with your own book, actually, The Adventures of Princess Isabel, or The Adventures of Isabel, Book 1, The Embryo Goddess and the Morpha. And so you are actually promoting magical realism. And what that is for me, what that does for me as a literary device, is it reaches down into the soul space of the reader, who's the most important person that we as writers serve. We serve readers. And what books that are really excellent and books that really open up and help you to channel your ancestors or channel your children that have not been born yet and bring because everything is spirit, and magical realism brings spirit into reality through magic devices. And as a writer, the use of magical realism is it's a lot of fun first, because you get to explore, you get to go places, you get to make up worlds, you get to go inside of atoms and see civilizations that exist on the atomic level, or civilizations that exist that are so vast and titanic that we can't possibly be aware of them, but they're aware of us.
Wow. And I feel like that's it's a big part of what Far Strider is about, is that there are those forces out there. So I'm sure that our listeners where can they read some of your work? Where can they see Obama in Ghana? What's next for you?
Yes, Obama in Ghana is on DVD now. It aired for 2 years on Black Entertainment Television's Centric channel. Did very well there. It's on DVDs now. As far as what I'm doing now, Far Strider should be finished by the end of the summer.
Oh, great. Wow. And
looking forward to having that go to press before the end of the year.
That's exciting.
So it can be out by Christmas. And big, huge project that I want to announce here on WPFW on Inside Out. Yes, give you guys a scoop. My production partner, actor, writer, director Clayton LaBeouf, who was in The Wire. He was on Homicide, Life in the Streets, and soon to be released HBO production of Show Me a Hero.
Oh, wow. And
many other productions on stage. He and I co-developed a science fiction script, Afrofuturistic screenplay called Vector. And Vector is a sci-fi story that takes place in post-earthquake Haiti. And we just returned 2 weeks ago from Beverly Hills, meeting with renowned international film director Uzan Palsi, who did A Dry White Season, Ruby Bridges. Simeon is a wonderful fantasy musical that she did based in Martinique. And her first production, her first film that she did was Sugarcane Alley. We met with her. She loved the treatment. We sent her a script. She loved the script. We went out to California to meet her, and she's going to direct our film.
So exciting.
It's called Vector.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you have to keep us posted.
I will.
And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Tony Regusters. I'm on Facebook as myself, and my face is there
You can
for
find
the
it.
most part. And,
Right.
You know, so hit me up on Facebook, and I have an email address, which is Tony, Tony _Regusters, REGUSTERS @MSN.com. And I'll be glad to receive any kind of requests or questions from anyone at any time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
too.
you're not going away. We're just introducing our next guest, who actually Pam is going to introduce Carol. So I'm going to let her take it away.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. I'm introducing Carol Binta. She has a master's degree in psychology and a bachelor's of science from Temple University School of Communications. She was awarded 6 different fellowships to pursue her graduate studies in speech and communications. Full of wanderlust, as she calls it, she instead traveled abroad for nearly 2 years, observing cultural mores and family life as far east as Pakistan and to the south of the Mediterranean island of Crete. Ms. Binta is a community activist, licensed therapist, Reiki practitioner, musician, and poet. She plans to chronicle her travels through Europe, the Middle East, and the Near East, as well as portions of her own personal journey in future writing projects. She currently has a private practice as a psychotherapist and is the mother of 3 daughters, 1 stepson, and 3 grandchildren. Wow, she's busy. Her book, Civilized Blacks, 3 American Negroes in the 1870s whose lives paralleled the life of Booker T. Washington, is a work of creative historical fiction.
Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
my honor to be here.
Carol, it's so nice to meet you.
Thank you, Pam.
So, that title is a mouthful.
Yes.
Wondering if you could tell me first about the title before we talk about the book.
The title itself is one of those magical realism type inspirations. I was looking for a title that was both controversial and confrontive. And that just came to me in this time because, you know, the idea that as blacks we were not civilized had been somewhat of our heritage from white America. So I was confronting that right on.
Right. So would you say that it's fiction, but you took yours in a little bit different direction? Or is it just the characters are creative? Or tell me about what's the creative part of it.
Well, it's... I'm not sure if I understand your question, but I'll tell you what inspired me to write the book. How about that?
Yeah.
My daughter had a homework assignment to read Up From Slavery in 4th grade, and to encourage her, I read it also. And I simply fell in love with Booker T. Washington, and I wanted to write a story to emphasize his respect and appreciation for women's scholarship. I also wanted to leave a written account of black people who do not only have slavery as a legacy, but who have excellent scholarship, wealth, and prosperity as an inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, a group mostly ignored in literature were these aristocratic black people flourishing in communities based in the church, who were heavily endowed with land and property, and most of all, family strength and power. I wanted to showcase them, and I called them civilized blacks. I believe we are responsible for creating positive historical roles models for our children.
Awesome.
I agree. Right. So you took that idea and then you turned it into your own story of Booker T. Washington, or these are just people who were alive at the same time?
No, it's a completely fictional creation, somewhat drawn from that cosmic consciousness we were just talking about. I loved my former co-author here because he had me really excited and chills going through my body because everything he described was exactly my experience in writing this book. My goal for the book was to break the conventional thought about Black American experience and to create an image on the canvas of our minds of roots that are connected to something other than slavery. Mm-hmm. But as I began to write, it was almost like I was transported into the era that I was writing about. I was actually psychologically and emotionally transported. When I would be writing sometimes at home, my children, when I would get a phone call, they would say, and they would, people would ask for me and they would say, "Oh, my mom's not here right now. She's in Alabama. You'll have to call her back." So the history, when, I didn't really write it from so much a literary creation as I felt I was channeling something that I was seeing. I was describing events that I was actually seeing with my mind's eye, and it just flowed out of me so fast. Actually, not so fast. It was 20 years in the making. But that was because I was raising a family at the time, and I kept having to go back to it. So,
right. I could definitely tell. I had the opportunity to read a chapter of it, and I could definitely tell that you were channeling the people in that era because the language felt credible to me. In fact, as I was reading the conversation between Aunt Pansy and what's the fellow's name? Luke,
yes.
Yeah. I felt like I was listening to a conversation between Celie and, what's her name, Malice Walker's book.
Yes. And
Celie and Shug?
Yeah.
Shug, right, thank you.
And the color of purple.
It felt genuine. It felt like, oh, this person gets it. It's not someone just trying to apply the patois. It actually is how they would speak.
I've heard that comment from some of my readers who are from the South. So I was just amazed at that as you are.
It's the mark of being a true vessel, that you could be amazed by it. I want to jump in for a little bit because I can't help, as a feminist, focusing on the main character's desire to break outside of the established gender role norms at the time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that character and how she was breaking out and what she dealt with at the time?
Absolutely. Pansy Outlaw, her name in and of itself is a breakout. Mm-hmm. She was an outlaw.
And Pansy Outlaw, that's a great name.
Yeah, that's the main character. And so she grew up in the rural South in the 1800s, the late 1800s, and it was expected of her to not even finish elementary school. It was expected of her, as she matured, to go back into the home and become domesticated and learn how to raise a family, and she hated all those activities. She just simply hated cooking. She hated housekeeping. She didn't want to have any, in her words, I don't want to have any nappy-headed children, And, so she was a groundbreaker from the very beginning, and she came up against the expectations of her teachers, even, who saw her as an individual who would produce more children for the schoolhouse rather than to become a scientist. She wanted to be a scientist. She used to do animal husbandry. She made soap out of scraps, of flowers and oils, and she grew plants from seedlings, and that is what attracted Booker T. Washington's attention when he came to stay at her home. And he was very impressed with her genius at such a young age. And he encouraged her, and he shared his experiences with science with her and back and forth. So that's really how she broke through the stereotype at the time.
And in real life, what evidence do we see of Booker T. Washington's desire to free women?
Well, he really promoted the marketing of what's her name, Madam C.J. Walker during her life. He actually invited her to the expositions. He used to be a guest speaker at these expositions where he would talk about his school and his science and his bricklaying and all the other things that he was doing then. And he encouraged women. He had 3 wives, which the first 2 died, and he was very, very encouraging of their participation in his work. So that was unusual for a male at that time.
So I know that this is an important work, and I'm guessing that you geared it towards adults. I'm wondering if you think that younger readers might enjoy this as well, because there is so much history wrapped around suffrage history.
I would say that it is appropriate for ages 6 to 106.
Excellent.
Really. And I actually have a 5-year-old niece that loved it and who reads and loves it. And my 11-year-old granddaughter, when she listened to the stories about the book at one of my book signings, she commented, "Grandmother, this little girl sounds a little bit like me." So I think it does appeal to different age categories as well, but it's mostly intended for young adults, even high school students, who can have a different view of themselves than the view that is presented to them in the American history.
Right. So because it's you say younger readers can read it, there's nothing in there that's too violent or too graphic or anything that might upset a younger reader?
Not at all. Not at all. And in fact, there's a lot of humor throughout the whole book. Because Pansy Outlaw has a best friend. Her name is Huckabuck Marie. And she is considered the town floozy, but it's not like you have these 2 people, one's the intellectual and one's the town floozy. And she's only the town floozy because all the deacons who tried to hit on her were turned away, and then they would make up stories about her having not been successful. So.
Wow. So Carol, I'm sorry, Pam, I stepped on your line. I want our listeners to know where they can find Carol's book.
It's available on Dorrance Publishing Company. Dorrance is my publisher, and it's also available on Amazon.com. And folks can hit me up on my Facebook page, which is entitled Civilized Blacks. And I also have some copies in the trunk of my car.
So get on down to the WPFW studios right now and get a signed copy. Okay. And for our listeners also, our authors' resources are up now on our Facebook page, which is Inside Out LGBT Radio. So you can go on there right now and click on the links for any of our guests. Speaking of our guests, I want to bring in our 3rd author today. His name is Lee Hayes, and I'm really happy to have him here. He is the author of several novels, to include Passion Marks, A Deeper Blue, Passion Marks 2, The Messiah, The Bad Seed, The First Male, and he's also an editor of the erotic anthology Flesh to Flesh. So Lee is also, because, I don't just have people who do one thing on the show, of course. Lee is also an executive producer of the documentary What Do You Know About Love and the web series Bait, which is available on YouTube. I took a peek last night, but it was so hot and steamy that I said, let me watch this later, but he's going to also tell us that it's not just steam, and it's funny, it reminded me of Scandal, like it was that hot. Lee is a Southern native born and raised in Texas. He graduated from the University of North Texas with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and received his Master of Public Administration degree from the Bernard M. Baruch College at the City University of New York City. And I want to welcome you today to the program, Lee.
Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here and so happy to have this opportunity.
Great. So I want you to read an excerpt from your latest novel, which is entitled First Male. But before we get to that, First Male differs from your novels to this point. Can you just let us know a little bit about how it's different from the other works that you've written?
Certainly. So this is really my first supernatural story. It's a story that really kept me up at night. My friends always tell me that I have sort of a dark side. I like writing about, murder and supernatural sort of things, but I had never done it before. And so I wrote this novel and it just sort of poured out of me. Mm-hmm. Like it really is the only novel that I wrote that I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a line that I had to write down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is an exciting story. I'm really proud of it. And it's just an awesome story.
Yeah.
If I do say so myself.
You may. But in terms of the difference between the themes of your work before now, you hadn't really been dealing with supernatural elements, or had you? I mean, from my understanding.
No, I haven't. So typically, like my first novel, Passion Marks, is a story about domestic violence within the context of a same-sex couple, within the male couple. The follow-up novel, A Deeper Blue, Passion Marks 2, sort of follows up with the same couple. And it's my story that I say it's my story of love, lust, and lies, and all of the things that we do badly in relationships to make them fail. My third novel, The Messiah, is about this psychotic killer who's out killing gay people in the hopes of having them repent before he kills them so that they can go to heaven. So it's just crazy stuff. So the supernatural is different in that regard. I'm sorry, The First Male is different in that regard, but it still gives you the sort of same dark kind of creepy things. So.
And the just sort of the broad brush strokes of what is First Male about.
Okay. So in the novel, the first male born of the first Thibodeau male has been prophesied to become the destroyer of worlds. So the story is really about Simon Castle, who is a beautiful young man, beautiful on the inside as well as the outside, but he comes to learn that he was created to destroy the world. So growing up, he would always have these strange occurrences and these supernatural events. He would hear things and see things and speak languages that he couldn't possibly know. And he sort of dismissed them as his own delusions, like, I'm going crazy, I'm paranoid, and sort of let it ride. But as his 21st birthday nears, he can no longer deny what's going on. Like the voices become louder, the visions become more pronounced. Like he knows that he's changing, becoming something else. He just doesn't know what. So as he steps into his destiny and begins to understand who he is, he realizes that now he has to do battle with his grandmother, who is the high priestess of the Thibodeau clan. And they are a powerful group of witches who have a sworn duty to protect the world by preventing the birth of the first male.
Wow.
But now that he's here, made flesh, they have to decide between family and their sworn duty. So it really is the quintessential story of good and evil.
Wow.
And about the choices that he has to make in terms of who he's going to be and these new powers that he has.
Wow,
is
that's
he going
amazing.
to remake the world in his own image, or is he going to do something worse? I mean, like, he has to make these decisions.
That's also very deep.
Yes.
And I can't wait to read it. I've only had a couple tastes here or there. And a taste is what I would like you to give us and our listeners. So I've asked Lee if he would read a little excerpt from the book, and I'm ready for it.
Okay. So y'all be nice out there.
They can't hurt you.
Okay. All right. So this is actually from chapter 1 of The First Male. In the immutable black of night, something ungodly stirred. Something unholy devoured the light. Deep in a swamp far from the mainland, angry winds hissed through the giant trees, covering the dense marsh with the unnerving sound of agitated serpents. Sharp pine needles, ripped violently from the trees, shot through the air like deadly daggers. Frequently, Brilliant lightning flashes tore open the sky in a dazzling display of power. Thunder shook the earth. Sheets of blinding rain crashed against the dilapidated shack, its rotting wood punished severely by the unnatural tempest. The ramshackle structure quaked and quivered, and its roof viciously shook, but it held its ground. The shack bent and buckled, but did not break. She would not let it succumb to the storm. Inside the house, a woman howled in pain. Her child was coming, even in the midst of such profound turmoil. The woman did not fully appreciate all that was taking place inside or outside the shack, but she knew something otherworldly was afoot, and she was a focal point. This knowledge only exacerbated her pain. She knew, she had always known, that the child in her womb was special. At the very moment of conception, she felt a jarring that rattled her body, sending a wave of nausea that almost toppled her. She knew in that moment, as sure as she knew her name was Rebecca Saint, that her child was conscious, aware. Now this very special child was coming, and she felt as if she was being ripped apart. Her pain was excruciating. She screamed in agony, wishing she was in a hospital in Baton Rouge so that she wouldn't have to endure such aching. She longed for an epidural. She focused on her acute pain and the life bursting brutally from her womb. She had never experienced childbirth before, but she knew there was nothing natural about what she was feeling. The pain she felt radiated in her bone marrow. It ignited every cell in her body. She felt as if her entire body was wrapped in flames, burning from the inside out.
Wow.
Whoa.
So that's how the first male comes into the world.
Yes.
Comes into the world amid storm.
Yeah, that's a heavy birth.
Yes. It's a supernatural birth. So I had to set the stage for a supernatural event.
Wow.
It reminds me a lot of the way Isabel comes into the world.
Right? It does, that it's this coming together out there in the cosmos of some force, which, and I don't know, Lee, if you agree with this, but I think that that's how we are all born. Not, our mothers might not be so aware of that, but that we do come together for some enormous purpose. Do you feel that?
I think we do. I mean, I think we're all here to fulfill some sort of destiny, and we have to figure out what that is. So I think, all the forces come into play to get us here, and then it's our duty to sort of figure out what that destiny is and to make it come to pass.
Might not be as dramatic as what he has to deal with,
right?
But that like you said, quintessential battle between good and evil that I think we can all relate to.
That we all have sometimes.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Can I ask Lee a question?
Of course you can. That's Tony talking.
Yes, this is Tony Regusters. Yes, Lee, your character, the first male, do we experience his whole life as a child? Do we follow him growing up? Or do we jump forward in time to when he is a mature person and his powers are really established?
Right, you really jump forward. So the next chapter really is him right around his 21st birthday. But throughout the discovery process of him discovering who he is, you'll get snapshots of what life was like as he grew up. He bounced from foster home to foster home because his family didn't understand what he was doing. He's 3 years old and he's speaking Latin or something, and they just couldn't get it. So you'll figure out, how he grew up, and he didn't have an easy childhood. And so he's not really close to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, because he thinks he's, he doesn't know how to explain who he is or what's going on with him. In part, he thinks he's crazy, but then he realizes that he's not.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so many of them today.
Like he's going on a heroine's quest.
Yeah, it's true. He's going on a heroine's quest. Carol, you wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying that there are so many of those that have come into our environment today like that, really. Children called indigo children, and, they can't explain themselves and what they know, and their parents don't usually understand them as well.
That's true.
Right, exactly.
That's true.
Don't know how to deal with them.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you. So, Lee, I have a question for you,
Certainly.
and I don't know, if you feel that it's central to the plot of First Male or not, but your other novels dealt with same-sex relationships between males and other themes like you talked about with domestic violence, but mainly around love and passion. What is the sexual orientation of the first male in this book?
He is actually straight for the most part.
Okay.
I mean, he has a girlfriend, and he wants to have a child of his own, which doesn't have anything to do with your sexuality. But he's a straight guy.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious. Yeah.
No.
And why did you choose to deviate from the sexual orientation of your other characters, or did it just come through you?
It really just came through me. So with this particular story, again, the characters sort of built themselves, and I always try to find, like, I actually thought about making his best friend gay.
Okay.
But then it didn't really fit with the story.
Right.
And if it doesn't fit, don't force it.
Right.
So I let it go, and I let the story and the characters evolve as it was meant to be.
Right. That's great. When in your other novels, I want to deviate a little bit from First Male for a minute. In your other novels that do have central characters who are gay men, do you feel that are you just writing this because you love the themes, or do you feel like I'm promoting diversity when I write? Like, do you have a mission like that, or is it just this is what you know, this is what you want to write about, and people will see diversity through it?
It's sort of a little bit of both. I think, in part, there's a part of me that always wants to show the world that gay people are people too. There's nothing different about the way we live.
Right.
I go to work, I pay my bills, that sort of thing. And I always have I think there's this perception out there that we do something else, that we live a different kind of way, and we're, so I want people to understand that my life is just like anyone else's life.
Right.
So typically when I've written these stories, I wanted that to come through, but I also wanted to talk about some of the issues that aren't often addressed within the gay community. Like, again, Passion Marks is about domestic violence within same-sex relationships, which is something that we don't often talk about.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have seen things happen with their friends. They just didn't know what to call it because that moniker is typically not given to gay relationships.
Right.
So I wanted to bring it back into the norm so that people could really start having those discussions.
Great. Thank you so much. And people can find you where?
They can find me anywhere and everywhere. I'm on Facebook at Lee the Arthur Hayes. I'm on Twitter at Arthur Lee Hayes. My website about the web series is rubait.com. There's a Facebook page called Bait the Web Series. So you can always find me. My email address is my name, leehayes@hotmail.com. So reach out to me. I always respond to all of my emails. So
great. And that's true. You are very responsive. And in case you were not speed writing when Lee said all that, know that some of his links are up right now on our Inside Out Facebook page, and I'll be adding the additional ones that he just mentioned. So you can always go there if you don't remember. And I'm going to turn it back over to Pam to bring in our next author, who hopefully is on the line. Joe, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, Pam, take it away.
Excellent. I am so excited to welcome Joe Cosentino. He's the author of Drama Queen, the first Nikki and Noah mystery, and Infatuation, Paper Doll, the first Jana Lane mystery, and The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, and Eldred Plays and Musical. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much.
So happy to have you with us. Now, let's get started right away. I love the title Drama Queen. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, I was an actor, and now I'm a college theater professor, and I realized drama departments are full of mystery, intrigue, comedy, romance, power plays. So I created a mystery series published by Lethe Press, and I thought Drama Queen was the perfect title, right, because the two leading characters are gay, and we're in the drama department, where college theater professors are dropping like stage curtains, and it's up to the being murdered, meaning, and it's up to the play director, Nicky Abbondanza, the professor of directing, to use his theater skills, including impersonating other people, to solve the crimes and figure out who done it while he's romancing the top suspect, the acting professor, Noah Oliver. And my colleagues kid me that if they tick me off, I'm going to kill them in the book. But actually, it's totally fictitious.
But if you do kill them off, it will be fabulous.
And this is only the first book. I've written two more. And in Drama Muscle, we have Nikki and Noah are the gay couple that are the center. Sort of a play on words for Nick and Nora, are directing a bodybuilding show on campus where muscle men are getting murdered.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And then the third one is Drama Cruise. They're doing a murder mystery dinner theater cruise, and the cast is going overboard. So in each case, they have to figure out who did it, and while their romance blossoms between the two of them.
Wow. Sounds like you've got your hands full. So I guess we should all stay on your good side, right?
Yes, that's what my colleagues say, because I'm the department head. And they say, better be careful or I'll kill them. But but actually, for why I think I was asked to do the show is that my mystery series has gay, straight, bi, transsexual, old, young, African American, Latino, Asian, albino. I mean, there's
the gamut.
The gamut.
The gamut.
Everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Joe, can you tell us where we can find you and your work?
Sure. Well, you can go to joecosentino.weebly.com, my website, and I'm on Amazon, Goodreads, Facebook, Twitter. I'm pretty much everywhere.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe, for being on. And again, you can find Joe's information on our Inside Out Facebook page. And I'm going to introduce our last author for the day. Hopefully he's on the line. Hunter Murphy, are you there? You're about to be. Hunter, are you on?
Yes.
Hey.
Hey.
So Hunter Murphy was born in Alexandria, Virginia, just down the road, just a short swim down the Potomac River from D.C., but he grew up in Alabama, so he's really more of a Southern gentleman these days. His novel, Imogene in New Orleans, is...
I'm not on yet.
You're not on yet?
No. Here we go.
You're on. I can hear you.
Is this Pam?
This is Nicole.
Oh, Nicole, I'm sorry. I'm listening to the former guest. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. It's a time lag, so go ahead and turn that off and just listen to me.
Okay,
so
sorry.
anyway, as I was saying, your novel, Imogene in New Orleans, is the first in a mystery series featuring Imogene, her hypochondriac son.
That's right.
And his longtime partner and their English bulldog named Goose. So, can you tell us a little bit, because we're almost out of time, a little bit about what is Imogene in New Orleans? What do we expect to see if we pick it up and read it?
Well, it's kind of a lighthearted mystery. It's full of gay characters. That wasn't intentional. I liked what I heard Lee say about it. Just kind of happens naturally. It happened because the murder victim was gay. He was killed in his art studio in the French Quarter. And, and I love Imogene because she is open to all people. One of her best friends in the book is an African-American praline chef named Lena, who's a hoot. Neither of the women speak the King's English. They're very creative with the English language. And they're a lot of fun, and their dialogue and scenes were some of my favorite in the entire book. But it's kind of a lighthearted mystery. I like Agatha Christie, and I like some of those puzzles, And so, we just kind of have a merry chase around the French Quarter, and it's a fun book.
So you mentioned Agatha Christie. I'm also a huge fan of that. I binge watched all of Poirot
and you both.
After I finished Twilight Zone. That's been my next binge,
David
and I continue to watch
is
this.
Genius.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but who are some of your other literary heroes? Who
I would say P.G. Wodehouse. The great British aristocratic novelist. He just writes the most ridiculous scenes. I love Zora Neale Hurston. I think Mark Twain would have loved Zora Neale Hurston. Her dialogue, her rich characters, the fact that that Janie being such an independent woman, I thought she was amazing. I love Willa Cather, Truman Capote. Let's see who else. A guy named Eugene Walter from Alabama. I like. There's so many to name. Carson McCullers, Flannery O'Connor, Harper Lee, James Agee. But a whole lot of them, and I had so much fun. Imogene in New Orleans is actually the second book I've written featuring Imogene and the boys, and it was I had so much fun writing their characters that I wanted to keep them alive a lot longer, so I put them in a mystery series. And,
awesome. And I'm glad you corrected me, because I'm saying Imogene, it's Imogene.
Well, some people pronounce it Imogene, so it's okay. That's that's okay.
But I got the bulldog's name right.
That you sure did. Sure did.
And is that modeled after your bulldog?
Oh,
who
absolutely.
I've seen on Twitter?
Absolutely.
That's an adorable dog.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So aside from Twitter, Hunter Murphy, where can people find you and find your work?
At HunterMurphyWriter.com. On Facebook, /Hunter Murphy Writer. I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a lot of stores online.
Okay, great. And during the daytime, you're also a librarian, or are you?
I'm a library assistant, a paraprofessional, but I'm a longtime library employee. So.
Oh, I love it.
Yay, libraries.
Yay, libraries. You know, I had, when I was in grad school, my job was in the library, and Howard undergrad, my mom's job was in the library. So,
cool.
Love working in libraries.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for joining us today, Hunter.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and what a great group to be a part of.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, so wow. Woo, that was an action-packed show. We are close to our time, so I want to say thank you to all of our listeners. I want to say thank you to our engineer, Michael Nacella, for holding it down in there. Tony Regusters, Carol Binta, Lee Hage, Joe Cosentino, Hunter Murphy, and last but not least, my special guest co-host, Pam Brown, an Unconventional Librarian. You can find all of our resources on Facebook. I'm specifically at Vision Quest Retreats with Dr. Nicole Cutts on Facebook, or visionquestretreats.com. And if you are interested in my latest novel, The Adventures of Isabel, she also has a page on Facebook. So again, thank you all of you for being here. I'm a Gemini, that's why I say all of us. Thank you all of you for being here on Inside Out, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and hydrate.